The world is steadily becoming more and more interconnected. Politics, trade, and the economy are not simply dependent on a single country, but rather all of them together. This is globalization. But what really is globalization? The first clue you are given is global, the stem of globalization. That's a pretty good start because globalization is the world. It is all-encompassing and does not exclude anything. Culture, politics, economy, ecology, and the list goes on. Globalization sounds like an easy concept. However, the multiple dimensions increased due to the interdependency of the world make it much more complex. There is some discussion as to whether globalization has always been around or if it is a relatively recent phenomenon. Some people argue it has been around forever due to mankind's drive to explore, push further, meet new people, and spread things such as their religion. According to that theory, globalization would have started on a small scale, one family becoming dependent on another, one tribe becoming connected to a different tribe, 2 colonies working together, 3 colonies, 4, 5, and it would just continue from there, growing exponentially as the world ages and introduces technology that would allow cross-global communication to be possible within seconds. However, there is another side to this theory. So people believe it is new, and that this is the beginning. Their reasoning is that the word is new. Until recently, there was no word to describe what is happening, and if there is no need for the word, could it actually exist? And with the recent advancements in technology, new things are possible that have never been before, and people believe that with that came globalization. Not only is the word difficult to define, it is difficult to date. Now is the controversial subject as to whether globalization is something to be celebrated or something to be terrified of. Is it good or bad? What about indifferent? Although being interconnected has its benefits, it also has its flaws. With all of the countries dependent on each other, the well-being of one country directly relates to the well-being of another country. For example, Japan imports $50.5 billion worth of electronics from China. That money goes to the Chinese economy and keeps China relatively wealthy and stable. That's good. But in cases like Syria, with the civil war, there are approximately 4 million Syrian refugees that have gone mostly to Jordan and Lebanon. However, because of Jordan and Lebanon's small size, inadequate resources, and weak structure, they are coming to a breaking point. There are examples of both good and bad things globalization does. One country really does affect not only the surrounding ones, but the entirety of them. So, does good override the bad, bad over the good, or do they come out even? Now that the murky part is out of the way, we can focus on the facts. Globalization affects everything, but let's focus on culture first. Culture refers to the beliefs, values, norms, ideals, symbols, and lifestyles of a specified entity. As we all know, religion is a huge part of culture. Christianity, for example, is the most practiced religion in the world, accounting for nearly 75% of the world's population. Christianity originated in Israel and has now been spread all across the world, covering all 7 continents. The thoughts and ideas of one group of people has spread and transformed, and people from all over the globe have adopted and transformed Christianity to make it their own. Globalization. Moving on to politics. Politics covers the activities associated with governance of a country or area. And how does politics tie into globalization? Well, I'm glad you asked. Politics has everything to do with globalization. First of all, the president, ruler, king, queen, prime minister, dictator, etc., the person in control of the country, decides how the people live. And as we've gone over already, each country affects the next. Therefore, the way in which people are treated is going to be of global interest. The self-appointed president of Somalia, Mohamed Farah Aidid, gained and maintained control by denying the people basic necessities of life, food and water. Because of the way he treated the people of Somalia, the UN had to step in and send the US troops to kill him. For the UN to be involved in 1993, when the Battle of Mogadishu took place, 184 other nations had to be involved. Obviously an example of globalization. The government treated its people wrong, and other countries stepped in to stop it. Anytime organizations such as the UN are brought in, globalization is at work. We have economics to connect to globalization. Currency is fluid that flows from place to place, country to country, and occasionally jumps right over an area. What I mean by this is that Egypt grows cotton and sells it to India. Now India's money is in Egypt. Then India takes the cotton and makes the shirt and sells the shirt to the United States. Now India has the United States money. The currency is flowing from one country to the next, connecting them. That sounds pretty good, right? But remember I mentioned the currency also jumps? In developing countries such as Mexico, a dual economy exists. A dual economy is when there is little or no middle class. The poor work attempting to produce goods that will be sold locally, while the elite buy expensive goods from other countries. With Mexico's money going to France to buy an expensive car, the money is leaving their economy to go elsewhere. Their currency is skipping over Mexico's poor. It is jumping. The flowing and jumping of currency throughout the world is economics. It is globalization. The last category I'm going to cover is ecology. Ecology is the branch of biology that deals with the relations of organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings. For the sake of this argument, we, human beings, are the organisms, although animals could also fill the role and connect ecology back to globalization. So we are the organisms, and the physical surroundings in which we will discuss is water. Fresh, clean drinking water is on a steady decline. With the population expected to soar to 9 million within the next 40 years, fresh water is becoming scarce. Roughly 1/3 of the world's population lives in countries experiencing water scarcity. By 2025, the number is expected to increase to 2/3. We are running out of water, which is not just a problem for us, but also every other living organism on the planet. 2/3 of the 2.5% of fresh water on the Earth is trapped in ice caps and glaciers. That is our water. No, not the United States, not Russia's or the Ukraine's or Cuba's or any other country. It is ours as a planet. That one source of water connects us. Needs bring people together, and therefore needing water is part of ecology, which in turn is part of globalization. Before I wrap up, there are a few more subjects I want to touch on. They are gender, not to be confused with sex, disease, war, and peace. First of all, gender, which is culturally constructed as opposed to sex, which is biologically determined. Gender varies throughout the world. In some areas, there are just the two, and in other countries, there are theoretically an infinite number. So gender, although disputed, is a concept that is globally recognized. Next, disease. It is easy to see how disease fits into globalization. One person from the Philippines comes to Disneyland, and all of a sudden measles, all but eradicated in the United States, is causing an outbreak. With travel being so easy, diseases can be spread just as easily. Because the disease was pretty much eradicated, the vaccine has not been well distributed, which is why it spread so easily and caused such a panic. Simply because the disease does not exist here does not mean it does not exist elsewhere. Precautions should be taken because globalization can be dangerous, and now we know this. Now war, which goes hand in hand with peace. Wars have been going on since the beginning. What is different now is that a civil war in Syria involves 184 nations plus Syria. War is a worldwide thing. Everyone has their allies, and their allies have allies. And then there's Canada and Switzerland. Haha. Anyway, all wars are now global, even if they are not labeled as a world war. And to follow that is peace. What everyone longs for. But even peace is a global thing. Agreeing to not fight and to negotiate is relatively new. Now we have organizations such as the United Nations Security Council, which is the 15-member organ of the UN that is responsible for working together to maintain peace and security. As I mentioned before, anything having to do with the UN is directly related to globalization. Globalization is the process of connecting the world. It is a web of everything tying together all parts of life: political, cultural, ecological, and economical. Then the subdivisions of those connect, and the subdivisions of those. All parts of life are connected, all countries are connected, all people are connected. Once you realize this, you can begin to see the world in a new way. At that point, you have become a global citizen. Congratulations.